Thank y'all. Thank y'all for being here. My name is Brad Wellens. I'm the regional manager for the Bayou region for the Louisiana Campaign for Tobacco-Free Living, which is a program of the Louisiana Cancer Research Center and the Louisiana Public Health Institute. We are so happy to be here to be a part of this community discussion for Region 3 around youth vaping. Our technical facilitator, Michelle Uzo, will be controlling the presentation flow and virtual access to the town hall. I don't know how many people we have online, but it's even more than we have in the crowd, and this is a great turnout, so thank you all for coming. We'd also like to thank Terrebonne General Health System and the Foundation, who graciously allowed us to use this space. The Foundation has given us a free lunch, and so we really, really appreciate all the work that they've done. Today is also the Great American Smokeout, which was an initiative founded by the American Cancer Society almost 50 years ago. So in 1976, what ACS said was, we want everyone to quit smoking for one day. They had over 1 million people in 1976 to do that, and they continued this since then every day on the third Thursday in November. And so this is GASM, and this is why we had this event on this day, to bring attention to smoking and cessation, need for cessation, but also to bring attention to the biggest rise in smoking, which has been youth vaping. So our objective today, what we are going to do is we would like, during this town hall, to hear from y'all, to hear from our panelists, to bring a very good perspective to all the different issues that vaping has caused among our youth. So what we want you to take away from this is to be able to describe the e-cigarette product and discuss the mission.
Good morning, everyone. But I think there is a misnomer about what vaping is or isn't. I do recognize that cigarette smoking in my generation and my parents' generation was a common thing. Now kids are vaping and they feel like it is so different than what it was before. I think our docs on the panel and several others will be able to identify really if it's harmful or is it healthy. Now, I don't think it's the healthy part, but hopefully today we'll be able to get some of those misnomers out. Our youth are our future leaders. We want to have a vibrant community. I'm very active on wanting to make sure that Terrebonne Parish and our region continue to maintain people within our scope and maintain people throughout our region, but we need them healthy and we need them happy, but most of all, we need them educated. And I think things like this, as we can partner together, helps bring information for not only all of you who are in our audience and those who are on Zoom, because one word will help convince somebody else of another information. But again, you're fooling with some adolescent population and some of our younger population, and they're not going to believe just you. Maybe you're a better parent than I am, but I can convince them all day long to say that is harmful. But until somebody probably of a different skill set or something tells them, or they hear it in a different way, they understand the impact. And I think we just haven't had as much information as we did before. And I think that information now is becoming very relevant and prevalent, that I think that we can give and share that information. So today I want to thank definitely our group and our partnership with Tobacco-Free Living. I want to thank our panelists. I want to thank our foundation for bringing this to our attention and making sure that we are. I know you've got comfortable couches, so let's thank that too, because that works really good too. But I think, again, I want to thank all of you for attending. I see that we also have some students, which is very impactful. They are teaching our future. They are becoming our future nurses and caregivers. And so we've got a wide variety of generational information in this room, and I'm sure on Zoom and up here on our panel. So please take the day for what it's worth. Please enjoy the day. It is a day about education and changing the mindset of us moving forward. So thank you for inviting us. Thank you for letting us participate. And with that, I'll turn it over to Miss Jenny. How about that? I'll hand you this, and I'll take this out your way. Thank you.
Hello, thank you so much for attending. I'm going to continue this wave of gratitude in this season of thankfulness and say thank you so much for allowing our team, the Louisiana Campaign for Tobacco-Free Living, to be here in your presence, both online and in this room, to hear from the insights that you might have on vaping with youth in your communities, as well as we want to hear your perspectives, both your lived and learned experiences in this space that we can move forward with as a community together, and addressing one of our major goal areas of preventing youth initiation of tobacco use in all its commercial forms. And so with that, just on behalf of the Louisiana Public Health Institute and the Louisiana Cancer Research Center, who are the shared leadership of our program, Tobacco-Free Living, I just want to say thank you again.
Working to specifically tailor our approach towards them. And also just goal area 5, we're coordinating this across the state. We partner with the Louisiana Department of Health and other community and regional partners. And so our focus today on vape awareness and vape cessation and dealing with this epidemic, we're focusing on goal area 1, which we're engaging youth, we're talking about youth, and we're trying to make youth healthy. So I'm going to start off with the data, the information. And Tobacco-Free Living, we actually do, along with the Department of Health, and every 2 years, we do our Louisiana Tobacco Youth Survey. And so this is information from, some information from the Behavioral Health Risk Survey, and then also from the Youth Tobacco Survey. So looking at Louisiana's overall smoking prevalence, you can see it has decreased over the years regarding smoking. 20% of U.S. residents currently smoke, but 26% of Louisiana residents continue to smoke. Next slide. So of course we have the rise of vaping and e-cigarettes. So amongst young people, we know that the number of cigarettes that young people are smoking have decreased. So when you see percentages, you see, okay, the smoking rate has decreased. But they're still using tobacco products because that vaping percentage has increased. Young people are using more nicotine products. And so how we're addressing this by applying education and awareness campaigns, regulatory support like workshops and informational sessions, education and the strategies and the work that the public health field has been doing across the nation. The vape number amongst youth has decreased. Even though across the nation it's decreased, in Louisiana it's still increasing. So you see that difference there. So we can go by national data, or we can focus on our state data and really tailor our efforts towards reaching our youth. So looking at that, 30% of high school students currently vape, 18% middle school students currently vape. Next slide. So with the state, we found out from community folks like you that products are being found in elementary school campuses also. And so we know that they're getting it from who? Older kids, family members. And so it's not only in high school and middle school, but some elementary schools too. And so that's a big eye opener. As far as, let's see, so most young people initiate vaping at age 13 or 14 years old. So that's over 1 in 3 youth that initiate vaping. More than 2 out of 3 products. There's also carcinogens in vape products that are cancer causing. Of course, research is still being done on that. It's not like we have years of research like we have with combustible cigarettes. So this is fairly new. The brain is not developed until about the age 25, their mid-20s. Right here you see a demonstration that kind of shows the development of a child brain to an adult brain from 5 years, preteen, teen, and 20 years old. And so for a more mature brain, you're looking at blues and purples on this picture. less mature brain, more yellows and red. So when you're introducing your brain to substances, including nicotine, you're at higher risk of becoming addicted. So before the age 25, you're at higher risk of becoming addicted. Think about it when...
Good morning, how are you all? Let's get into our discussion. So first, we're going to do our introduction of our panelists. So I'll start. We have Dr. Elena Nichols, internal medicine and pediatrics with Terrebonne General Health System. We have Jennifer Trigg, executive director of the Bayou Council Behavior and Health Services. We have Mr. David Malone, Public Information Officer with the Lafourche Parish District Attorney's Office. We have Dr. Andrea Lorio, Specialty Clinic, Terrebonne General Pulmonology Care. And we're going to end it with Shelby Griffin, Community Nurse Education with Terrebonne General Health Systems. So, we can start on this end and do brief introductions, pretty much just letting us know what's your role in its relation to vaping, and what have you witnessed or experienced related to vaping in your role.
Hi, good morning. I'm Dr. Andrea Lorio. I am the Medical Director of Pulmonology and Critical Care Services here at Terrebonne General. I work with patients mostly in the adult age with regard to vaping. My focus primarily is with the young adult population, 18 to about 25 years old. But we do see vaping even as old as some of my 80 and 90-year-olds. So we do have a wide variety of vape use, especially down in the Bayou communities. I see the effects of vaping both in my clinic care as well as in the acute hospital side with the primary management of both the pulmonology as well as the critical care admitting patients to the hospital.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Nichols. I am internal medicine and pediatrics, so I've been in Homa for about 3 months, a training Birmingham. And so my role here is I split my time between our internal medicine clinic and the pediatric clinic. I do about 50-50, and so I'm caring for kids from birth all the way up until the elderly. I do see a good bit of vape usage as young as 6 or 7. Influenced from their siblings all the way up into our older populations, 60 and 70. Usually on the adult side, it's interesting that most people think that this is their compromise going from smoking to vaping. They think that they are actually improving themselves and their health, but children think that it's cooler to vape than it is to actually smoke cigarettes. Smoking cigarettes is an old people thing. And so they think that vaping is cool, it's better flavors, and so there's a lot on that side that's happening with trying not to be cool. And then on the adult side, it's interesting just seeing individuals thinking that they're actually doing better. So try not to do as much lecturing to them, but just a lot of information is needed and education on both sides.
Good morning, my name is Shelby Griffin. I am the community nurse educator here at Terrebonne General. Basically, my job is injury prevention education. I am trying to keep people out of the hospital, especially our youth. A lot of the programs that I teach, I'm teaching to high school students, middle school students. I have even done vaping presentations at elementary schools because they have addressed needs and issues in the elementary schools, even that young. I also have a background, I'm an emergency room nurse, so I don't really see too much vaping issues. Besides going to the schools, they come to me with an issue. I'll go in and provide the education to get the kids to stop. But also on the ER side, I've seen kids, especially around the COVID time, young kids were coming in with respiratory issues, and we are thinking like, oh, could this potentially be like a COVID situation, any other type of thing? And then research after a couple of years was actually the E-Valley. So thinking back to it, we were actually seeing E-Valley cases of young kids coming in, their lungs were just so damaged, and it's just so broken because of the vaping issue. So my job here, I'm just trying to use everything that I've gained in the ER to make sure kids don't come to the emergency room, don't go to their pediatricians with these issues and potentially damage their lungs for the rest of their lives.
Hi, good morning. My name is Jennifer Trey. I'm a licensed prevention professional. I'm also the executive director of the Bayou Council Behavioral Health Services. We're located in Thibodeau. We provide prevention education services in the community. So in Lafourche Parish and in St. James Parish, we provide the curriculum to middle school and high school students. So in Lafourche Parish, we're in every middle school, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, providing evidence-based curriculum on vaping, substance abuse, gambling prevention, and tobacco prevention. And then in St. James, we're also in the 2 high schools providing those services to 6th, to 7th, 8th, and 9th grade. The vaping prevention program that we provide in Lafourche and St. James Parish is called Catch My Breath. It's fairly new. But it has seen a lot of positive effects from being provided across the nation. So if you ever want to go online and kind of read about it, there's a lot of information online, including statistics, community presentation information, a parent toolkit. So they do provide a lot of resources on there for the community and parents. The vaping prevention program is provided to 6th graders in Lafourche and 9th grade, because there's a middle school and a high school component. And then in St. James, we just provide 9th graders with that information. We know that it's starting younger. We do not service any of our elementary schools with the prevention programs that we offer, but further on in the presentation, I will discuss some of the things that the school system is doing. So.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is David Moss. I'm the Public Information Officer for the Lafourche Parish District Attorney's Office. That's one of my roles. Within that function,
Yeah, you're close to the speaker, unfortunately.
one of the functions of a Public Information Officer is to go into our schools and educate on various issues. I still hear them. I hope it's not bothering you guys.
You're good there.
And address issues that have come up based on what our teachers and the feedback we're getting from our administrators within the school. One of them is vaping. They were seeing an issue among middle schoolers, so our district attorney, Christine Russell, and myself put together a presentation, and we've done it as young as 4th grade. We've gone in and given the presentation. As a criminal justice aspect of it, obviously when we're dealing with our children, it's important to remember we're dealing with children. So we don't want to tie them up in our criminal justice system. So our approach is more preventative intervention, trying to get them to see the consequences of it and how the studies behind it are relatively new. So we really don't know all of the effects of it. So I gave a presentation last week to about 50 5th graders. The sad part is they come up and they don't talk about their friends doing it. After they see the consequences, the health risks behind it, they talk about how can I get my family to stop doing it, my parents to stop doing it. And that's a troubling question that I face, because we obviously don't want our kids going back home and fussing the parents and then the school's getting the call. Going back a little further, I have a background in narcotics, and during my time there, the study was 61% of people who smoke marijuana moved on to harder drugs. And so we're seeing that these capsules are laced with THC, tetrahydrocannabinol, which to me, that was a big eye-opener for me, because, and it kind of made me a little bit more passionate about pursuing this. I didn't really understand everything at the time behind nicotine use. I do know that when I was a kid, I would go get a haircut with my grandfather, and everybody in there smoked cigars, and the smoke was so thick you could barely see the next chair. Only realizing now, wow, I was inhaling all of that. So I'm looking forward to learning from the panelists as well. I don't consider myself an expert, just somebody passionate about making sure that our kids have every opportunity to succeed.
Awesome. Thank you all for those introductions.
Is that working now?
Yes.
Okay. Can y'all hear me in the back? Yes. So when I was starting to put my answer together for this question, me as a parent was thinking, this is another thing as a parent. There's so many things out there. How am I ever going to make a difference in my own child or someone else's child to help give them a positive message for them not to start vaping or using tobacco products. It's not going to fall just on the shoulders of the parents. It's going to have to be a community message. It's going to have to come from physicians, law enforcement, community, hospitals, schools. They're going to have to see this consistent message over and over again. Because as we know, a one-time message may not make that difference to a child. So as a parent, of course we want to educate ourselves. We want to know, and I'm not saying we need to educate ourselves on the 65 chemicals that are in we don't have to name them all. We just need to let the kids know that this is highly addictive. It's not water that you're vaping. It's an aerosol. It's a chemical that's heated up. You're taking it into your lungs. We can use very basic conversation with them to let them know that the dangers of this.
Medical professionals. The question is, how do providers approach and educate youth about vaping?
I think that's a good question. For me, I was actually talking to my children about this beforehand, too. I have 9-year-old twins, and I asked them, I said, do you know what vaping is? And they were like, duh. And I was like, oh, okay. Wasn't expecting that. And so, like, how do you know what that is? And it's, it's everywhere. It's on YouTube. It's on television. I think that the first thing is making sure that, everyone thinks that the kid isn't going to do it. But the data shows that there are, estimated 1.4 million children in the country that are currently vaping. So someone's kid is vaping, right? For me, I build these types of conversations into my well child checks. I start sometime between 10 and 12. And I tell parents up front, your child is getting older. And so I kick parents out of the room. We go through what parents' concerns are, and I ask them to step out. I make it clear that this is something that I do for all well child checks. And then I have a heart-to-heart because I'm like, I'm about to get all in your business. I'm going to ask you all the questions that you don't feel comfortable talking about. It's not to be punitive, but it is because I need to be able to best take care of you. And kids are very, very slick and very conniving, and so I have had to tailor my questions over the years. And I learned a lot about it in training. I used to say, do you smoke? And they're like, no. And I'm like, okay, have you ever smoked? Yes, when? Yesterday. So because you're not currently smoking in my face, then that means that you don't smoke, right? And so then it became, okay, well, so now I have a list of about 20 things I ask, okay? Do you use tobacco in any orifice on your body? Do you smoke? Do you inhale anything? Do you use any drugs that are not prescribed to you? And so we go down a list and, really trying to reinforce again that it's not punitive, that this is not something that, I have to go back and snitch to parents about, but it is a conversation that we need to have with parents. I think the bigger thing really is creating that relationship with kids and making sure that parents know that I am not trying to build a relationship against you with your child. I'm trying to be an outlet because they don't want to talk to you about everything. Sometimes they want someone who's not in the family that can discuss things, that they can discuss things with. And a lot of times it just takes those repeated conversations. I had a 17-year-old this morning that was brought in with parent because he had been having shortness of breath, chest pain, and so parent comes in with them and very concerned. And so they want an EKG and they want all these things, and I kick the parent out of the room, and I'm like, what else is going on? Because you're 17, you shouldn't have high blood pressure and a heart rate of 120. Let's talk about what's been going on with you. When did this all start? And after teasing it out, he's been vaping for 11 months, and he doesn't realize that there's more nicotine in the passive vaping that he's doing than there could ever be in the cigarettes that he's smoking. And so a lot of his symptoms are most likely from the fact that he is vaping nonstop and has been for 11 months. And so I'm like, you bought yourself a workup, you bought yourself an EKG and some labs, but I really think that if you stop vaping, then your heart rate might go down and you might not feel so bad. But then we have to spend time convincing him that he has to have this conversation in front of his parents as well, because your parents are worried about you. And so I think always taking it back to your overall health, and that this isn't supposed to be a punitive conversation, that it is supposed to be for your health, and making sure that we make good plans moving forward is, usually what I try to do. And I fail at it a lot, and my kids let me know that too. So I like to practice on them too. So
As a specialist, I'm getting people coming in already with symptoms. They know there's something wrong with their lungs. They know that they're experiencing cough, shortness of breath, chest tightness, wheezing, increased mucus burden. And so they're looking for answers, and a lot of times, as we tease through the history, getting a very detailed, what I call the inhalational history. So have you inhaled anything? Whether it's a nicotine vape, a non-nicotine vape, are you smoking marijuana? Are you smoking cigarettes? Are you putting something in your lungs that can cause a problem? And so we go through that with every patient, especially at their intake appointment, their consultation, but then we touch on it every single visit. And I try not to come from a place of lecturing to patients as they come in, because that's one way for them to shut down and for them never to come back in my clinic. And I know I can't be effective, I can't have a good, positive relationship with them if they don't come back. And so we really focus on, first of all, building a good rapport with our patient, because again, I see patients that are 18 to 99. I don't see the pediatric population per se, but I do have a lot of young adults in my clinic that come in and they have smoking-related lung injury, they have vaping-related lung injuries. They're coming in with poorly controlled asthma. And so I spend a lot of time explaining to them about what's going on in their lungs. I have a lot of different models in my clinic that I can show them. This is what healthy lungs look like. This is what your lungs are doing right now. So it shows them how much extra mucus, how much inflammation, how much swelling is going on in their lungs, and this is why you're having these symptoms. And then, I crack open the books. I have
exam, a craft exam, so the HITS exam starts with teenagers. I started anywhere again between 10 and 12, and it's just a list of questions where you were talking about sex, alcohol, drugs, tobacco use, bullying in school, those types of things. And so for me, under the alcohol, drug, tobacco section is where I have to explicitly say, do you vape, do you dip, do you smoke, anything like that. So it's just kind of worked into my adolescent story.
Okay, awesome. So going to Mr. David, what is law enforcement's role in prevention?
So we've taken kind of a three-pronged approach to it. Primary being education. As I mentioned earlier that we're dealing with children. It's important to keep that in mind. We don't want to tie them up into the criminal justice system, even though JV records are sealed. We also do regulation and intervention rather than criminalization. So education, as I said, we put together a presentation. We find it's most impactful with imagery. It's one thing to say something, it's another to show them. I found videos for all parents out there. I find it's very impactful when they hear it from a teenager, just a little bit older than they are. So I've pulled in videos into my presentation of someone who was addicted to vaping, and then they had the severe health consequences of it and that impact. The ultimate goal is to get them to see the long-term effects, that not just the criminal side of it, but the health risks. Popcorn lung, obviously they enjoy sports. We talk about how important it is to be able to breathe, right? Or just to perform normal everyday tasks, the importance to be able to breathe, climb stairs. That usually brings them in. The majority of the presentation, we try to use videos. We show images of how these devices have exploded. We show the injuries from explosion. You have an oil and a heating source. They run the risk of explosion in the mouth, in the pocket. That usually gets them You can see the wide eyes, and you might want to check that person's backpack because they get really nervous at that. But of course, I'm older, and my 10-year-old reminds me how old I am. I cracked a dad joke the other day with her. She said, Dad, that was funny in the 1900s. All right, so anytime you can bring in a younger voice, it's very impactful. Obviously, it's illegal for organizations to sell tobacco products to anyone under the age of 21, but it's also illegal to possess it under 21. But these guys are 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, and in that ballpark. They can't go in and purchase this, so more than likely someone's purchased it for them, or they have a plug on the street, somebody that they can buy from. And what we are seeing across the nation is that when they're buying it off the streets, you're dealing with someone who has a drug dealer mindset. So they're going to lace it more than likely with something because they want you to come back, usually fentanyl. Of course, they don't know how to regulate the dosages, so you can have overdose there. Obviously, like I mentioned, what kind of drew me into this when I was doing some research was the THC component. Obviously, that's in marijuana. I believe it's a gateway drug to harder narcotics. So that's kind of our educational approach to it. But the regulation side is to go into these businesses and see if they'll sell to an undercover informant. And if they do, they face consequences, fines, suspensions of license, revocation of licenses. And then intervention, where we try to get them to see the bigger picture. For a kid, it's hard for them to understand consequences. So we try to just educate the parents, educate the students, let them know, and this is how I connect with them when I come. I use every angle I can, is I let them know. I have this opening my presentation that most people will tell you that if you vape one time, you're going to die. Obviously, most people don't give that, but it draws them in because, like, yeah, people do. It's always the dramatic or the most extreme. And that usually brings them in because it builds trust and rapport, and I'm able to talk to them about, look, these are the consequences that we're seeing. Studies are still being done. Obviously, I'm not a medical professional, but you're going to want to stay up to date with all of this because we are seeing how they are affecting health of kids.
Put up for expulsion. There's also the alternative schools that they have to go to, like the East Street School, or I've been told about TARPs that they're going to. So they are they're keeping them out of the school, but a couple of schools have mentioned to me that in the past there have been talks of educating the students and also the families and their parents that yes, your child was caught with a vape. This is why it's wrong. We shouldn't do this. They're just sending them home, but the education was never there. Or maybe it was there a couple of years ago, but it has fallen through the cracks. That education is no longer available to these kids. So they are just being sent away, like, okay, you did something bad, stay home from school. If you tell a child to stay home from school, they're looking at it like, oh, that's awesome. I don't have to go to school today, right? So is that really a good form of punishment for them? Maybe once they get to the point of expulsion, is that going to be the eye-opener for them? Or are they just going to continue to have these offenses? But that is how the schools are actually taking action against them as of right now.
Awesome. So, Jeff, I'll ask you the same question. In your role, how are schools currently responding when students are found with vaping products?
So I'll basically, can y'all hear me? Okay. I'll basically talk about LaFouche Parish schools. I was recently in contact with Mr. Barry Fields, who is the Director of Child Welfare and Attendance in LaFouche Parish, and basically the same thing. When vaping became a really big problem several years ago, they had to find some alternatives because they could not handle the amount of referrals they were getting. They would have probably had 80% of their student body out of school. So they have done some different things, but most of the time it is in-school suspension or out-of-school suspension, with the expulsion being for habitual offenders. Last year, prior to the school year, he actually did a 3-minute video that was played, giving resources to quit or things that they can do, that was kind of falling on the wayside. So he is very interested to do within the school system. They also, they do all have monitors in all of their high school bathrooms. Vape kids are not walking into a store and buying these vape products. We had a case that there was a middle schooler actually selling them on the middle school campus, and when
THC vapes or a vape that was possibly laced with fentanyl because they were considered like the outcasts.
Again, one of my daughters was like, I mean, if it's so bad, why do they sell it? And I was like, go to bed. Answer to that question. But it's like if it's something that's being advertised to me and you see it on the commercials and on the ads and it looks kind of cool, why not try it? And so, I wish it were more. I wish more of the reasons that I got for it was because, because someone made me do it or because someone pressured me into it. But a lot of times it's because they're bored and it's something that looks cool and then they can't put it down. I think something that's very important that was said earlier, and something that I have a lot of back and forth with parents about is that adults can't quit nicotine on their own. And so we're expecting children to be able to do it. And, I think, yes, it is definitely multimodal with smoking cessation, but, I am not against giving kids nicotine gum or nicotine patch. Seeing people in withdrawal from nicotine is something awful for even adults to go through. So to have a 12-year-old that is tachycardic and hypertensive because they're withdrawing from nicotine and then expecting them to not have it at school once they're addicted to it, I think is almost an unreasonable ask. And it's definitely unreasonable to ask them to do it alone. And so for me, it's again going back to parents and just being really realistic and like, listen, this is something unfortunately that has started, that they have a dependence on, and it's going to take more than just taking their tablets or their iPhones from them. Like, they are going to need help and assistance, even if that means giving them a patch or giving them gum or some other aid to help get them off and break the habit.
I see a lot of folks that say that they start vaping because, they see on social media, they see on TV, on different ads, different places, it's a safer alternative. We know vaping's only been around for a handful of years in comparison to cigarettes. We've known the dangers of cigarettes since the early 1900s, going back to, last century. We knew that cigarette smoking was dangerous. We knew that cigarette smoking caused cancer as early as the 1920s. It wasn't until the 1960s that we have the Surgeon General's warning that cigarette smoking is bad for us, and to start limiting cigarette sales. We just don't have the time data from vaping yet. And I focus a lot of that conversation with some of my patients when they come in. They say that it's safer, but I show them the list of chemicals that they're inhaling, and I show them what the chemicals that they're inhaling break down to, right? So the propylene glycol that are in the vapes can break down into formaldehydes, and that's how we preserve dead bodies. And I ask them if that's how they want to preserve their lungs. And, they kind of give me these big wide eyes, and I say, but this is what we're putting in our body. We know that even though we're not having the burnt tar and the smoke and everything that's in a cigarette, we still have a lot of things that we're inhaling from the vapes. And, their motivation, what they come at me with is, I started this because I wanted nicotine in a safe way. And so I have to really break it down with them that at the base, nicotine is a drug. We're going to call it what it is. It's a drug just like THC, just like morphine, just like, fentanyl and everything else out on the market. Nicotine is a drug. It changes the biochemistry in your brain, and that's how it causes addiction. There's no safe way to consume nicotine that's going to give you any health benefit. And so that's kind of where their motivation comes from, to start vaping. As opposed to cigarettes a lot of times. Anyone else?
I'll take it. I would say that they never start. be our ultimate goal. So that's why we try to target them at a very young age, so that they don't have to come see you guys and then get put on a nicotine patch or some type of alternative, so that they can be weaned off. I think that's what I hope to see, is that they never start, because they've been, I think it's wishful thinking to say that they no longer care about acceptance, or they no longer care about peer pressure, or they don't try to scratch that boredom itch by just trying something new. I think that's wishful thinking. So if we can get them educated on the ramifications of it, so that they never start doing it, I will take that as a win. I had, there's a kid at a school that was expelled for 2 years, and he's never smoked. He's vaped one time, and the one time he did it, it was laced with THC. He had a negative reaction, had to go to the hospital, and his friend who actually brought it nothing really happened to him. He was expelled for 2 years. So he's definitely probably going to be a good one to go into the schools and say, you're not going to want to do this even once. That's a question I get too from kids. If I do this once or twice, am I going to die? And that's the type of questions I get. And I'm honest with them. I'm like, I have no idea if you are or aren't going to pass away, but I wouldn't risk it. So don't ever start it. That would be the goal.
Yeah, and of course, I feel the same way. I think if we can just get the kids to never start, but we all know that kids will try things. And so if we can go in with our information and messages, or they see messages out in the community, and we just reach that one person and get them to stop, then that's also my goal, is to touch the lives of those who have already started possibly, and give them the education that they need to make that decision to quit.
You know, I think the old adage, it takes a community to raise a child. And I think that it speaks volumes, especially in this arena. It takes the community, it takes everybody around the child, whether it's the parents, the family members, teachers, coaches, pastors and religious influences, to really make sure that we have a very strong, unified message about the dangers of vaping and tobacco use. But also, you know, we have to provide them with those healthy outlets, those healthy coping skills. You know, we focus a lot on telling them the dangers of nicotine, but I think digging into why they pick it up, you know, why their answers are, why it's hard to quit, I'm agitated, I'm anxious, I'm depressed. I think if we really focus on giving them, you know, the healthy coping skills to be able to manage growth and motion, and be able to become productive, you know, members of our society, I think that really could be a very potent goal for us, to be able to reach them in a meaningful way that's not just the focusing on the punitive or the negative effects of vaping.
World where social media is a really big influence, not for just the children, for adults as well. So I always tell everyone, like, I'm sure at least one person here, their goal is to be a TikTok influencer or some sort of social media influencer. Of course, we don't want the kids to start, but we know that this is an issue, right? That's why we're here today. So what I also tell them is, look, if you are that child, you are the one who's using this, I want you to go out and find help. There's lots of resources available. I can give you a lot of resources. I do know a few off the top of my head that I'll share with you. But also, once you do go to those resources and you are one that stops, I want you to become an influencer. No, you're not going to be a TikTok influencer, famous, and get money for this, but I want you to go out there and influence other friends, other people your age to make these good decisions, so that way we can bring these numbers down and this will no longer be an issue in our area.
And also, so we're going to go to some community questions. Do we have any? Oh!
Should I just get out?
We may need a mic. Yeah.
Thank you so much. This was such an incredible panel and I learned so much. And I thought I was off the hook. I got a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old and I thought I had more time to start talking to them about it.
I'm so sorry.
So this is my question. I am concerned about Zins and the pouches that are becoming more popular. My example is that I have two brothers who are in their 40s who have never smoked, never vaped, and have both become regular Zyn users. And there is a belief, I think what you were mentioning about vaping is safer, I think that belief is more even pronounced with Zyns. And even some of our prominent people in the health field right now say that Zyns increase performance and help make.
I would rather they are getting the nicotine regardless. And so if we can do this under a monitored, safe way with something that is a prescription that is not used as much in children because we don't test children with it, but we can eventually get them off of this. Talk about the risk and benefits. I'd rather do that.
The bud and all that, and I'm like, do you think that that targets adults?
To counteract that, in addition to what their responses were, focusing on social media. A lot of them are being influenced on social media by major influencers regarding vaping, actually to the point where they're showing them how and what to get. So we're working towards, and what TFL does, and I'm sure other tobacco, anti-tobacco groups, we're actually counteracting that by putting the message out there on social media. So, and then we also are trying to work with influencers too. That's on our side regarding, being against vaping. So that would be a good way to counteract that promotion, because that's what they're looking at right now. And that's what's capturing their attention, is social media platforms, specifically the ones that they use. So not Facebook, but actually Instagram or what's the other one, TikTok. And working with influencers that way.
Oh, question.
I guess it's a question as well as some concerns. I am the social worker at TAPS, which is the alternative school here in Terrebonne Parish. Last October, Shelby came and she actually did a vaping education presentation for our kids. We had one presentation tailored to middle school kids and one tailored to high school students. And then twice last school year, I had Gulf Coast to come in and do a Catch My Breath curriculum with our students. And so what I'm seeing is there was pretty much the same types of comments on the presentations and the vaping classes that the kids took. And Shelby can confirm they were in disbelief. They asked questions that was like, oh no, this information is correct, there's no way. And so when I had Gulf Coast to come in and do some classes in addition to what Shelby did in October, it was some of the same questions, same comments. And so it's concerning to me because, of course, the 20-plus year social worker in me just wants them to get it together and to believe the information that is being presented to them. So I guess my question is, because we see kids on a daily basis, and these kids are appearing, air quotes, to be under the influence. Some of them come to school, they look normal, midday, they're looking higher than a kite. And so, yeah, they are being searched. The metal detector is, I think, turned up to the highest sensitivity level, but they are still getting these vapes in schools, in our school. And so no matter how many one-on-ones I have with them, how many heart-to-heart conversations I have, it's like it's falling upon deaf ears. These kids are not listening, and they are allowing their friends to continue to influence and entice them to vape. My question is, I had a conversation with a teacher just 2 days ago, and she was pretty frustrated. And she was frustrated because I think she had a conversation, and I'm going back to Dr. Nichols's comment about talking to the kids and getting them to understand the negative and harmful effects of vaping, and then having that conversation with the parents, right? Which is the same thing if I had a client, teenage client, who became pregnant, I have that conversation with her and encourage that kid to, let's have this conversation with your parent, but I'm not gonna disclose that you are expecting. I'm gonna be there to support so that she can do that. I'm just using a different example. However, my concern is, what do we do, or what can be done to reach out to the parents? Because the teacher's concern was, oh, we're not supposed to reach out to the parents to let them know that there is suspicion of vaping or kids being under the influence. And I guess it might be a Mr. Mark Tarbert question, because our Terrebonne Parish School District's CWHI Welfare and Attendance Director is here with us, Mr. Mark Tarbert. So I don't know if that's a Mr. Tarbert question or if that's a panel question. What are your suggestions or recommendations when it comes to reaching out to parents about this very same issue?
Legal ramifications for a teacher to reach out to a parent over concerns of some type of substance abuse. I don't believe that there's any law that I'm aware of that would prevent you from doing that. I do know when it comes to juveniles, it's hypersensitive to protect the child, which also makes the public massively misinformed when it comes to criminal activity among our young people, separate issue. So I think it would probably fit more for the administrative side, but if we could reach a parent who is actually involved or cares, I think it would have the greatest impact, because they're with their child every day of the week in home. They're able to search places that has the biggest impact. Our district attorney, Christine Russell, and myself were part of an organization that was started, High Five, and that was an after-school mentoring program. And one of the criterias was, if possible, to have a legal guardian or a parent involved, because what we saw to have the greatest impact with our youth is to have a legal guardian or parental involvement. So if you can reach them, I think you'd have success there. But then again, at the end of the day, the kid has to want it, right? You can have tons of education and outreach and opportunity. We can put them through diversionary programs and counseling sessions and talk about the consequences, but until they want it, until we can get them to see how important it is that you stay away from this, it's really not going to be very impactful. And that's why I feel like the family component is probably going to have the most impact than strangers.
I think that you guys have to give yourselves a little bit of grace too. I know that we have, like, when we're dealing with kids and we're dealing with youth, like, we want them to do right, we want them, it's like they are harming themselves and we want them to do better. One example I give my adult patients is, I really like cake, right? And I shouldn't eat cake every day, but if it was in front of me every day, I would, right? And even though I know that there are negative ramifications from it, like, it will harm me if I eat it every day. And that doesn't mean that there won't be days that I won't do that, right? And that's cake. And I have adult patients who I come in, their blood pressures are 200 systolics, and I'm like, why won't you take this pill that I give you to take to get better, to help yourself? And we are expecting children to do that as well, right? And I think that is sometimes an impossible ask. And so I think that while we're continuing to do all of these other things and trying to combat a system that is focusing and targeting on them, you guys also have to give yourselves a little bit of grace when things don't go as planned. When you have kids that you have talked to 50 times and they are still doing the same thing and getting kicked out of school, continuing to make the efforts to make them do right, but also realize that it's nothing that you are doing wrong, that they are not listening or that you are not getting back to them. You are one person fighting against a machine that has been built to target them, social media that has been built to target them, and companies with billions of dollars.
You never know what day it's gonna click. So that continual, a lot of my instructors may get aggravated and said, oh, I don't think the kids are listening, I don't think that, you have to remember that you just don't know what day you're going to make the difference in that child's life. And you may be the only positive message that they may be going home to addiction in the home, and you may be the only person that's continually giving that positive message, and you just don't know what day that's going to click. And as far as concealment, I mean, there are actually companies out there making clothing that conceals it, so it's really difficult. So if you're hiding a vape in the collar of your hoodie, and the strap of your hoodie is made for you to put it in your mouth and suck the vape, I mean, how are you going to know if they're sucking on a hoodie string? So it's just so many different things that they're making. I mean, some of them look like games where they're actually playing this little game, and if they don't do it within a certain amount of time, they lose the points on the game. So they have to take a hit and play this little game. So it's just so many things out there, and it's changing daily. It's just so hard to keep up with. As it's a Delta 9 or THC product. Of course, they probably have it in a Ziploc bag, but it may look like gummy worms. You just don't know because it's being marketed in so many different avenues and just basically designed for children to be enticed to use.
So kind of piggybacking off of that, another thing too, they will have the packaging of candy that looks like, let's say it is a Sour Patch bag of candy, right? But if you actually read closely, it'll say Stony Patch Kids instead of Sour Patch Kids. Same thing with the gummy worms. So if your parents are out there, look at the actual packaging, right? Don't just do a quick glance of it. Take a really good look at it. Just read it, and it's not exactly what you think it would be.
I have ways that you can help your community. Think of ways that you can address this in your community, and just remember it takes a village, and we're doing this for the masses. So thank you all.
Observances, so participating that way, and that just creates more awareness and education. And next slide, Michelle. There's also additional resources. You've heard here how right here in this parish, in this region, you have Terrebonne General Hospital that provides this type of programming and services and helps equip here. Also, you have the Bayou Council who goes into schools. So you have the resources right here that you can connect with to provide services to the youth that need help. In addition to that, Shelby actually mentioned the in-depth program. We talked about policy and alternatives to suspension. The in-depth program is a really unique curriculum, but it's something that our regional managers work with schools too, to help them create these policies where it's more positive, restorative consequences versus punitive and criminal consequences. Because we truly realize that this is an addiction and this is a health issue.